Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck here, jumping back on. Want to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. We expect Wendi Adelson to testify. She'll probably be on the stand much of the day, and it's going to be very interesting because I think there's going to be more questioning brought out by both the prosecution and the defense. The evidence we've heard so far was how $2.7 million of insurance, life insurance, was there after Dan died. So, being divorced, he would not have named Wendy as a beneficiary of that, but the two boys would have been. And so I imagine they would have had a trust set up. And with the trust set up, they would have had a family member in charge. For example, one or both of the parents, and maybe Shelley, the sister of Dan Markel, would have been administering that. And then money would have been being sent to Wendy every month to support the boys. So if you got $2.7 million to spend over the time frame that the boys need to finish to go to school and make it to college, you're talking about a lot of money every month she would have been getting and has been getting to the state. Then take into account also the way the Social Security system works here. She was getting $4,800 a month free from the government every month after Dan was murdered. And despite her having wealth from her family and having this kind of money to take care of the boys, she did not need any of that from the federal government. But yet that's what she's been receiving it'll be over $1 million until the boys graduate high school or until they turn 18. And so that's a lot of money at your disposal. So there is a huge financial benefit for savagely killing Dan Markel. We haven't seen any mention of the ring, the Holocaust surviving ring from the family of Dan Markel that Wendy still has. I don't think that Markels will ever see that. That was something Dan was fighting for when he was supposed to give that back as a part of the divorce settlement. So yeah, if you do have questions, thanks Food is Love for helping out, being the mod tonight. If you do have questions, go ahead put in a red emoji. M2, you're saying it's all a game. Do you seriously believe that the family would flip on the golden child? Not at this juncture, but once they all get convicted and the appeals are exhausted, then they may start waking up. Or the other thing could happen is if Donna dies in Florida prison there, she will then have Charlie probably blaming Wendy for it all. He's going to blame Wendy for setting him up, pointing the finger at him and his reviewing of the interview with Detective Isom. I'm sure he's come to that conclusion the way she had to drive by the crime scene a little over an hour after the murder happened. So those are some of the key things that that Charlie's is fuming about. And I think the longer he's there, the more he's going to blame his sister. He thinks he should have gotten away with it if it wasn't for Wendy's behavior and actions. Frank Ford, how many times did the Adelsons call the Markels and express their sincere condolences? Well, it's you got to completely to separate and distinguish when you're talking about Adelsons. You cannot talk about the Honorable Dr. Rob Adelson, who's on the witness list. Maybe he'll testify tomorrow after Wendy. I would assume Wendy's going to testify her first, and maybe he's going to testify then. And it's really important to show the family dynamics and how Donna treated people that she thought as outsiders, just like Dr. Rob's current wife was considered an outcast and an outsider. She was not approved by Donna, and she did everything she could to break up the relationship. In fact, she succeeded, and it took some time, I think a couple years before Dr. Rob Adelson decided, you know what, I got to follow my true love. I'm not going to go by who my mom's telling me I should or should not date or marry. So, but that caused a big rift in the family, and he's pretty much an outsider, an outcast. So he was probably going to talk about some of that and talk about how the reaction of his Florida family members was very, very strange and very much had a cloud of guilt and suspicion in the way they conducted themselves. So the jury's going to be able to see that. Yes, I do think he's going to testify. The jury will be able to see that Donna is just going to be fuming mad at him. The hate's going to come out towards her own son that way. And it's going to be very damning testimony from Dr. Rob. And then, yes, we also have Wendy. Wendy's going to try to say things to help her mom, but it's going to be very, very much something that's going to make Wendy look like she's been a part of this. And so if the real wild card here is if they start pointing the finger at Wendy and accusing her, either Jackie or Zellman, if they start accusing her as being a part of this and then trying to deflect from mom being a part of it. So the thing is, if they start accusing Wendy, will she deny it and then maybe say, no, my mom had something to do with this, but not me? So there's more evidence that's more of a direct kind with Donna than there is with Wendy. But there's overall, I would say there's probably more circumstances indicating guilt of Wendy than there is Donna. For sure, there's way more little indicators that all add up to many, many circumstances. And what defense may try to say, these are just coincidences. Well, you don't have over 100 coincidences in a murder case. Those aren't coincidences. Those are indicators and circumstances showing consciousness of guilt. So yeah, Edward Tozer, Wendy did hit the jackpot when Dan was murdered. Stevie Howell, do all murder victims in America get money from the government? I don't know if it has anything to do with the murder per se. I think it has to do with maybe if there's a single parent and there's a death and from the other parents. If you have one surviving parent of children, then is that normal for the government to give those checks, pay those checks out to the surviving parent? I'd never heard of that before this case. I think most Americans would be shocked to learn that. I was. Had a tea aside from the non-kosher ordeal at the wedding. So you're referring to Dan Markel thinking that Wendy's family was getting a kosher wedding meal for the guests, but it turned out to be non-kosher, but it was called kosher style by Donna and Wendy. And so Dan was absolutely crushed. What was supposed to be a great day for him turned out to be something that he thought was an absolute spit in the face kind of deal, I'm sure. Because he took that very seriously. He was very much wanting to strictly follow the more of the Orthodox Hebrew traditions of eating only kosher food, which has been blessed by a rabbi. And so he thought that was important for the kids, but Wendy didn't want to honor and respect that at all. And so that's why Donna, who is all these people are Jewish, mind you, Donna's calling him a religious zealot and all that kind of stuff, and recommending Wendy make it look like the boys are converting to Catholicism. So yeah, this is This is very much a loser case for the defense. I mean, the opening statement, think about that a lot since we heard it, and it's just something that's just sort of like throwing some facts together after a long tribute to Dan Markel. And after that long tribute, I thought it was really odd. I'd never seen something like that, such a lengthy tribute to the deceased, the murder victim, and you're defending an accused murderer, saying what a great person Dan was. So it really makes your client out to be that much worse. So the more evidence that's piling up against Donna, it makes her look even that much worse. Like Dan really didn't deserve it, and that's how bad the Dan had to survive dealing with Donna's behavior and treatment towards him as well as Wendy's. So I think that the interaction with them, because the Markels are from Canada, I think there was probably limited interaction with the extended family of Dan's with the Adelsons. And look at the way Ruth and Phil were wanting to see the boys when they came down there after the memorial service that quickly assembled memorial service for Dan. They wanted to see the boys that weekend. And what does Wendy do? She pretty much tries to avoid them and then leaves town, and they don't even get to say goodbye to their own grandchildren. So if that's not like suspicious, guilty looking behavior, and then Wendy changes the boys' last names to Adelson, and the one that had a Markel middle name, that was changed as well. Lou G, should they hold off on arresting Wendy until after Donna's trial, thinking Donna's lawyers would ask for mistrial due to jury finding out Wendy was arrested and probably tainting the jury? I don't think that would taint the jury. I think it would be great if they arrested her as she's trying to leave the courthouse, but I think they would wait until after. That's my guess. It's maybe going to be a few months down the road. I'm thinking by the end of the year, if they haven't announced her arrest, then they just are too afraid of taking on a tough case. It wouldn't be that tough. You just got to bring out a lot of details. You have to be a prosecutor that's very focused on details and have the courage to try a case that's not been handed to you. You got to outsmart the defense and you got to outsmart the defendant. So if they don't think they can do that, then will the Fed step in? That'd be nice if the Fed stepped in and said enough is enough. State, you've had 11 plus years to prosecute the other two Adelsons. Kamala Cass, you're saying you heard an interview with an Amy Dennis who knew Harvey and Donna a little, and at the memorial, Harvey would not talk or look at her. Okay, well, that's similar to the way Harvey acted towards Tamara Demko, who was a mutual friend of Dan and Wendy's. Yeah, he had trouble looking people in the eye. Yeah, what about Luis Rivera implicating Wendy? Yeah, I think the jury hearing that before she testifies is a great thing for the prosecution. Sarasota, you're saying that Wendy said they reconciled, so they're estranged now because, yeah, she's all over the map. I mean, she's testified before that, that Ruth tried to have the kids taken away from her, and that's why she didn't let them see the kids for 6 years, which is not true at all. Ruth was merely asking a question from Georgia, suggesting there's like a Jewish home that can take in kids if their parents are not able to. And just from that was like pretext for many years for Wendy to claim that Ruth was trying to take her kids away from her, which is totally ridiculous. It was only in the event Wendy was getting arrested was that question posed. And now she says they have unfettered access. So which is it, Wendy? I mean, she's all over the map on so many different things. You can't get a straight answer out of her. Life 30 has the I'm old and I don't understand technology ever worked to gain sympathy for the defense. I've never seen that. I'm sorry, my notebook's hitting the keyboard here. Rashmam used it and failed. Now Fulford uses it. Yeah, when she's sitting there saying, I don't even know what Skype is, really, you lose credibility with the jury. You absolutely lose credibility with the jury, and that's one thing you cannot do. Think about how Fulford lost credibility when she says there is no evidence that Donna was involved. We know Donna tried to flee the country. She wrote a script for an inmate to use, and we don't know the details of that, but obviously it was something to obstruct justice. Innocent people don't do that. Shannon K, do I think the cross-examination of Wendy will be comprehensive or kid-gloved? Okay, so Wendy's being called on direct examination by the prosecution, so keep in mind the cross-examination will be by either Jackie Fulford or Josh Zillman. And if you know what happened the last time, if you saw her testimony last time, it looked completely scripted between Rashbaum and her lawyer. It sounded so fake and rehearsed. So does Wendy's attorney have that kind of rapport and connection now with Donna's attorneys? I'm not so sure. It may not be as rehearsed this time. They may not be rehearsed at all. So it all depends. I'll be able to get a read on that where I think it's been arranged and discussed beforehand. It's something I would ask as a prosecutor. Have you seen questions that were going to be posed ahead of time from the defense? Have those been worked out with your lawyer? But I think the jury can pick up on that even if they don't. So I think this cross-examination is not going to be as kid-gloved as it was with Rashbaum. Even if scripted, I think they're going to ask tougher questions of her. Because think about how much time and effort Rashbaum gave to defending not only Charlie, but also Donna and also Wendy. That's what he looked like. He was defending all Adelsons. Sir Tedrick Walker, you're asking, does Charlie and Wendy watch Donna's trial? Charlie may be able to on a tablet there in South Dakota prison. I'm not sure what the prison rules are on that. And excuse me, that's a wrong answer because where is he? He's somewhere around Leon County Jail there. So yeah, it'd be the same answer if he gets access to a tablet. But if he's a transient person like that, and I'm not sure they'd give him a tablet. Depends what the jailhouse rules are. Is Wendy watching Donna's trials as a witness? You're not supposed to, but I think a lot of witnesses probably don't follow that rule. I think she's wanting to see what was said so she could be more prepared for tough questions. Optus grind. Do I think the Wendy indictment is signed, sealed, and at an undisclosed location at the ready? I don't. Do I think it's already signed? They should. If they're really on the ball, they would have that done, but they probably won't. And the reason why, unless they get a conviction against Donna, they're not going to go against Wendy. That's sort of been the strategy that Jack Campbell uses, the chief prosecutor there. Kelly 7, you're saving Louis' interrogation. He stated Wendy was walking with her kids the day he was murdered, and asked Katie why she was there. Yeah, Sigfredo says that's her, but I don't think that that's probably accurate. It probably was a woman walking with her two kids, and Sigfredo, I think he had to do some encouraging chat and motivation for Luis to get involved. Luis was getting cold feet about it, it sounded like, and so he had to like assure him, "Hey, see, there's a woman that's we need to help her out." So I don't think that was I don't think that was Wendy. I think it would have had phone records from her to show she was over in that area if that was the case. Shannon loves Connecticut. I assume that's what the CT means. I think Rob's testimony is going to be absolutely key in letting the jury know who Donna really is. I've been saying that all along. I've said that in Charlie's trial. They need to call him. I said it right before Donna's first trial was supposed to happen. That got blown up because of the conflict. So first trial part A, and this one's part double A because of that conflict of counsel. Law and Lit, how can they bring in testimony from Rob Adelson regarding Donna's character? Won't defense try to keep it out? They've already tried to keep it out. There's been some in limine motion about it. And I hope the prosecution really thinks about all the different mannerisms and behaviors of the Adelsons after the murder and how Dr. Rob Adelson had conversation with them and what they said. And I'm sure they said, we don't want to hear about it. We don't want to talk about it. Very, very suspicious, guilty acting behavior. So I think that's what would be critical for them to provide to the jury. Ali H. Sarah said that Charlie and Katie had laughed and joked about Donna washing the money. Never heard that in other trials. New info from Katie. Could there be more coming out about Donna? Yeah, I think we're going to hear more surprises, more and more, almost every day. Maybe multiple surprises and new details about the case. Cam, you're saying Wendy never answers a question. She's always minimizing. I call it deflection and deceiving and evading, all those kind of things. And many just outright lies. MTO, why on this earth is this tag team defense allowed? It's so confusing. Yeah, I don't get it. I did check after I criticized the prosecution for not objecting and the judge not saying something about it. I did look up the rules. I was talking to Leslie about this. I'm like, I've never seen this happen where a court allows it, but in Florida, I guess they don't have any specific rules that says you can't do that in the local rules, but I don't know why a judge would allow it, because what you basically have is two bites at every apple of argument. On motions, you can do that. I remember the judge, I could have sworn the judge didn't allow that in motions, where he said basically, I just need to hear from the one counsel who first argued this. So unless my memory serves me wrong, it's not a good move. It's sort of like an act of desperation. It makes in front of the jury, makes the attorneys look like you need both of them there. If it's in front of the jury, if the jury's not there, it just takes a lot of time. It's sort of like one attorney can't explain it well enough. You need two. So are they going to I mean, think about it. You could have both attorneys asking a series of questions of cross examination of the government's witnesses. That would just be really strange. Could that happen? Jeremy Daniels, what's the over under on Donna having a large emotional outburst when one of her children is on the witness stand. Well, I think she's probably on some kind of benzo, some more Xanax or something like that to try to keep her mind at ease. But I think there's a good chance of her faking more emotions, just like she did that fake crying when they were showing photos of Dan Markel after he was shot. So it may not be loud and something that's going to right on the spot have the judge scold her on, but I think she's going to do some of that shaking of her head and stuff like that. She'll probably have to be admonished by the judge once a jury is sent on break. Good chance of that. Bookworm, Rob Adelson will be one of the most interesting witnesses. Okay, Jebby, thanks. You watched the 40 hours that I was trying to present earlier tonight. And yeah, go back and look at that 48 hours. It was having to do with a murder in Sarasota, Florida, that was done by an ex-husband after a bitter custody fight. And a mother of 6 was gunned down in a murder for hire plot. A lot of similarities to this case. Just a total brain dead murder plot hatched out. Ocean Girl, what will Charlie say on the stand? Is he a prosecution witness? Yes, he is a prosecution witness. I don't think his defense attorney would let him cooperate and testify if his mom's attorneys call him as a defense witness. So I think they want to have him testify as to his crazy robbery with a layaway plan testimony and how his mom knew about it. He only talked to his mom, didn't tell Wendy or Harvey about it. So his whole testimony is just so outrageous. The jury can see why he was convicted based on his horrible testimony. So the more the Florida Adelsons talk, the more likely co-conspirators, including themselves, are going to get convicted. So I don't think they'll have him on the stand for 8 hours like Rashbaum did. Pretty CC. Do I think Donna's lawyers are going to go aggressive with Wendy's cross? I think they'll be not scripted like Rashbaum was. So I think there could be some tension there. I just don't know what they're going to do because they're not doing anything logical or really strategically wise from what I'm seeing. Granted, they don't have a case to work with, but I think they're doing a lot of stuff that's going to backfire, and it's actually helping the prosecution. So again, think if Donna was sitting there with Charlie, they're having to go through the same plays in calling witnesses as they did for Charlie. So it just begs the question, why weren't more Adelsons tried together? Winter, you're saying this will be the last time she ever sees Dr. Rob. In fact, it's the last time she'll ever see any of her kids. Could be. Yeah, unless she decides to flip, which I don't see her doing. Tell you, why did the judge tell Donna to quit making crying faces in court? Well, I don't think he called it crying faces, but making facial expressions. In the opening, she was shaking her head, and she's trying to draw attention to herself and draw sympathy. So the judge You're not allowed to do that, like show body language of um, of evidence and witnesses like that. And the judge could tell it was fake, and that's why he said something about it. She's trying to she's trying to be the star of attention there in the courtroom. She's thinking she's winning over the jury, but they can see right through it. There was no tears coming down her face. It was all fake crying, just like Wendy's fake crying with Detective Isom. Annie Lavelle, can't the Markells or Georgia tell the judge that Jackie can't call him Danny due to it being disrespectful? Well, that's what he went by mostly. So his given name was Dan or Daniel. But it makes him sound that much more of a nicer guy going by Danny as opposed to Dan, I suppose. And so if she wants to call him that, it makes it look all that much more ridiculous. And they're all about looking ridiculous. So I think it's a good thing because I think the jury, like you, will see some insult in it. Sir Tedrick, when Wendy's found guilty, she'll have to pay back government for what she did. Well, that's a federal benefit you receive. And so if you murder somebody and you get federal benefits, they could come after you for that as being some kind of a fraud scheme. But that's the federal government, not the state. Don't know if they would do that. I would hope they would. Ms. Wildside, you're saying you got survivor benefits when your father was murdered in 72 and 218. Well, gosh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. You're not the only one who's talked about parents being murdered here on these comments lately. So I'm just really, that's really disturbing. Clint Adams dealing with your dad being killed in year 5. That's another tragedy. Wow. Sorry to hear that. It affects you for life, doesn't it? Just like these boys. Tell me that's not going to affect these boys the rest of their lives. Demir, I do think Wendy will be the next to be arrested. She better be the next to be arrested. Makes the most sense. Should have happened a long time ago. Skeptic, you're saying since it's defense strategy to place the blame on Wendy, is it now clear Wendy will not support her mother tomorrow? It all depends how much. That's the defense attorney's doing that for Donna. Donna's not the one implicating Wendy in any way. That's her attorney. So, however much her attorneys want to go after Wendy, that's what the attorneys are doing that they think is the best interest for Donna. They're legally supposed to do that. They're supposed to zealously fight within the bounds of law for their client. Cheryl's World, gosh, another young child with a father passing when they're 9. I'm sorry to hear that. So your mom received death benefits for you and your brother until the adult age. So you listed Bert. You also think that defense calling Professor Markel Danny is beyond disrespectful. I think the jury's going to like that. Well, I think she also called him Dr. Markel. I'd never heard him called doctor before. That's what Jackie Fulford referred to him in the opening. I really think she is testifying tomorrow. She was supposed to testify Friday, and so it makes most sense that they would have her testifying tomorrow. Jeremy, you're saying, what do I make of the state not redirecting Lewis on points where he fingered Wendy rather than Donna? I think the state is letting the defense get away with too much. I'm not worried about that because Donna was not brought up in the conversation when Luis is talking to Katie or Sigfredo's talking with Katie. That was not, Katie was not really apprised of that, as even though she knew who who Donna and Harvey were. I don't know if she knew how much they were behind it. Maybe Harvey, because she got the Lexus with his name on the title. So maybe she thought, yes, not only am I getting the backing of Charlie Adelson, but also Harvey, that can embolden her to turn down the deal for time served and cooperate and flip against the Adelsons. SG Blues, do you know Jackie Fulford was a judge removed from the bench for judicial misconduct, and she owns a funeral home, Fulford? And, I knew about the funeral home. I know about her being accused of judicial misconduct. But in lieu of discipline, she was allowed to voluntarily retire, and then that went away. The accusations, is my understanding. So she was not found guilty per se. That happens a lot with government folks. If they get busted doing something, they allow them to retire if they're retirement eligible instead of facing a trial. Still at G, it seems like Wendy got much more of a financial windfall than we first thought. Dan was worth over $2 million. She's also getting monthly Social Security payments. Yep, like $2.7 million. But keep in mind, it did not go directly to her. It'd be a monthly payout from a trust fund that Dan, I'm sure, would have had set up for the boys. Talk Life. I love that Judge Everett told Donna to stop the theatrics. You're saying the defense also almost has to be very kind about Dan because the Adelsons were so mean to him. Yeah, they made it look like, Dan is so wonderful. He's so wonderful. And because he's so wonderful, that's why Donna would have treated him so well. So any stuff about Donna, it's just, something she said in jest. She was just angry at the moment, and she didn't really mean any of that, right? Because he's so great. She just got caught up in the moment. Yeah, some of you all are commenting about calling Professor Markel Danny, not calling him Mr. or Professor. I'm not going to object over that if I'm the prosecutor. The state will decide what to do with the boys if and when he's arrested. Leap day boy, the state could be holding back info on Wendy until after Donna's trial. Well, that's why anybody says they don't have enough evidence against Wendy is is wanting there not to be enough evidence against Wendy because the state has even said they've not disclosed all evidence. So if all the evidence hasn't been disclosed publicly and you're saying there's not enough evidence, then guess what? You're not waiting till the state presents all their information to say there's not enough evidence. So looks like some kind of agenda going on, wouldn't you say? Acu Ninja Gal, can we get some lines included with John after court to hear his impressions of the jury too? Yeah, I thought about that afterwards. I didn't interview John after Friday's session. So I'll plan on doing more of that here. If John's up for it, I'm sure he will be. I think it was just such a long day, and it got strung up there for over an hour in the afternoon with defense objecting and Georgia sort of stumbling there a little bit on how to present evidence. Les Mom from Texas, I feel like the state seemed off the first day. Yeah, I think Donna helps save the day all the time for the prosecution when they do stumble on some evidence and stuff. Donna's not looking good. She's acting inappropriately and acting fake, and that helps overcome hiccups from the prosecution. But overall, what the actual witnesses had to say, I think, is right on schedule. After that phenomenal opening by Sarah, Sir Tedrick, yeah, we plan on going live tomorrow. Yeah, so that's one of the things I'm looking at maybe switching up. I got that direct feed from John in the courtroom there. So the video and the audio quality is better than what you can see even on things like Court TV and Law and Crime. But the flip side of that is it's a 50-50 screen. I cannot make myself smaller on the screen. So I'm going to take up like 50% of the screen space and share it with whatever the live feed is. And I'm not able to put closed captions up. So I may just go ahead and jump on the Tallahassee Democrat. They don't have any scrolling messages near the bottom of the screen. I'll talk with John about that tonight. Positive vibes. You can't stand the way Donna and Charlie talked on the recorded Joe call about the Markells. They mocked them and lied about them. Yeah, they did. They didn't even care that it was a recorded call. That's how much hatred they have. Lisa, you're asking, will wrongful death be filed by the Markells? Well, the Adelsons have everything in trust, and I don't know if they have legal means to bust up a trust. So probably not. Janie Garnett, I wish Georgia would be more aggressive. Yeah, me too. I've been saying that for a couple years. She needs to be more aggressive, and if she's not more aggressive, it can look like she doesn't have much interest in the case. She can lose the jury. So she needs to have more passion. This is a murder case. And she's not prepared. If there's objections, it's like she wasn't even prepared. So hopefully she gets better here. Kelly 7. Louise asked Katie why Wendy was walking with the kids near the house. Katie replied to make sure everything's fine. What are my thoughts? I just don't think that was Wendy. On one hand, it could sound like Wendy. I just think that she's going to try to keep more distance from the hitman than that. And they would have had phone records to show she was in that area at the time. And then we've never heard anything about the phone records, GPS location from cell towers. But maybe they ever looked for that day, so they don't have it. It's too late now. Stella G. Time has not been kind to the case or witnesses. I'm wondering if the state has regretted their one by one case strategy. On the other hand, they do have limited resources. Well, if you have limited resources, then try them all together. So if they don't regret not charging and trying at least Charlie and Donna together, I mean, granted, you got some more information of Donna trying to flee. You got her doing that crazy stuff in jail. She had done crazy stuff in jail even if she hadn't tried to flee. And a strong enough case, even if you don't have the flight, to avoid prosecution evidence. Alfonso Levsolis, the defense argued that the email was both Donna's and Harvey. If it wasn't Donna's, doesn't that implicate Harvey? Yeah, on one hand, but it's you're telling me Donna and Harvey sitting up in the condo, they're not both talking about what's in those emails and totally behind each other on that stuff. And they're talking about how some of the emails mention Harvey, but they don't actually show us those emails. So I'm not sure how it was signed off by Harvey each time or Donna. So the recipient, Wendy, knows which one is actually sending the email. Yeah, people always asking who's that in court. It's just some visitors, some public spectators. That's all it is. Who's the woman accompanying Wendy to court? She was there with Charlie, with her at Charlie's trial, says John Bew. Yes. Don't know if, I think it's an attorney. I remember that being an attorney friend of hers, I believe it is. I don't think it's a victim witness assistant from the prosecutor's office. Carla S. RN, do I think Wendy will have to revise her testimony compared to previous testimonies denying family involvement in this heinous crime now that Charlie's convicted? That's really the interesting thing that could come out in her testimony on direct is like, well, you agree Charlie's guilty of murdering the father of your two children, right? What's she going to say? So I'm not going to say what makes most sense because I don't want to do anything to help the defense. But no matter what they ask her about that, it's not going to. The answer is not going to be credible. Citing San Clemente, can Wendy be in the courtroom after she testifies and has been able to hear anything that's been said so far in court? Well, she's probably been looking at YouTube over the weekend. And once she's released as a witness, if she's not subject to recall, then yes, she could go sit there with your dad. Marta Cabillo, you've had this question for a while. If Charlie paid for the hit $100,000 because that's what he had in the safe, why did Donna bring laundered money when what Charlie paid was enough? I don't I don't know why they needed to transport money over there and why it was so late getting to him. It doesn't make any sense. All I know is it's very incriminating and helps show that Donna and Harvey were in on it. And that's why the defense is trying to distance Donna from stopping by the house, Charlie's house. They went out of their way to go there on their way up to Tallahassee, went way out of the way. And the reason being wasn't say goodbye and give hugs to Charlie. They were there on a mission, and it makes it look pretty incriminating. It looks like a money drop. The jury's going to believe Katie on that, just like they did the last trial, I'm sure. Eki Ninja, imagine how that would come across to a jury if Dan's Markel's wife, well, it wasn't his wife, his ex-wife, testifies to not stay for the entire trial. Yikes. Yes, that's if she's not there, if she's permanently excused tomorrow or whenever she gets done testifying and she doesn't stick around, they may subject her to recall though. I think I would as a prosecutor. I couldn't believe they let her be excused and she was heading back home to Miami when she got the call, "Hey, you're not excused. You got to come back and testify again." Trial Chili Dog, you're asking, do I think Donna's any drugs calm her down during the trial? Yes, I do. That's my understanding. They're okay with giving out prescribed psych meds to folks there in jail. Carrie Retchless, please give your take on why they did not go after Wendy after Charlie was convicted. I know the money came from Grandma Adelson. Some of the money did. Her and Harvey. I apologize. I've talked about this already. Okay, so they're going a one at a time approach. A slow roll, one at a time approach. That's what the pattern has been with the state attorney's office. So unless they get a conviction on Charlie, they're not going after any other Adelson. Unless they get a conviction on Donna, they don't have the confidence to go after anybody else. Mimi, you think the defense is blaming everyone but Donna? That's her defense. Yeah, I mean that's a highly risky strategy because you're going to basically be blaming your children and saying that you're being set up and falsely accused because of their actions. I don't think that's not going to work at all. It's like you got no separation between you and your kids that way. Stella, what's my take on the script Donna wrote for the jailhouse informant and a possible handwriting expert? Well, the defense is going to call it a handwriting expert as well, supposedly, but I think the jury's going to believe it for what it is, which is Donna wrote some instructions in a script on what one of the inmates is supposed to say, and she probably offered a lot of money to say that. E. Davis, I cannot wait for Jeff Castle's testimony. Provides so much deep and chilling insight into how much planning there was between all the Adelsons. Yes, that's true. He's a phenomenal witness for the prosecution, and his ability to perceive what was going on. The more he thought about it, the more he realized he was set up. And he thought he was in a relationship that was going somewhere, and he realized he was just totally set up to be the fall guy. Philip Frank of Wendy changed her testimony again. Can she lose her limited immunity? Well, I think if you lie, you should lose it anyway. So she's been lying in multiple trials. It keeps getting worse. So yeah, they should prosecute her for perjury, in my opinion. They can make some arguments there that what she's testified to is material. No, her grandsons are not there at the trial. That was just I understand some kids from high school wanting to check out a trial. I'm surprised they let them sit there. All the fans for Donna were supposed to be there. Kitty girl, do I think Wendy will take the fifth a lot? No, she's not allowed to take the fifth when called by the prosecution. Otherwise, she could be held in contempt of court and bail should arrest her right there on the spot. It'd be outside the presence of the jury, but keep smiling. Let's hope both attorneys are more prepared this week. Both sides were unorganized and the jury hadn't noticed this. I don't know. I think you're still going to have the defense fumbling around with papers, shuffling papers. Hopefully the prosecution will be better organized. I don't think you'll have those issues with Sarah Dugan. I think it's more just Georgia, who's just not very as prepared as she should be, as aggressive as I would like to see her. April Rain, why is this case taking so long? Well, it's a lack of prosecution zeal by the prosecution team. Politics has been part of it. COVID was a little bit of it as well. Their prosecution strategy, which I think is too much, dragging your feet. It's like a tortoise moving. And I think they're intimidated by Adelson's having money and lack of confidence and ability to size up evidence. There's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts on that one. But got to be bold and courageous, know what you're doing. They also didn't understand the conflict issue. That's something that delayed this as well. Donna should have been convicted almost a year ago at her trial, but that conflict with Rashbaum was going to blow up in their faces, and it did. Becky Einhorn. Do I think Harvey being in the gallery will curb Rob's testimony? I don't know, Rob. No, I think he's totally, thoroughly discussed it with both parents. And Max, so if Wendy put herself on the stand, immunity is null. Yeah, that'd be something decided after she testifies. They're not going to have any kind of declaration. They're not going to charge her right there on the stand. It would be done after the fact. Maybe defense opening did not score points in your opinion. What are the thoughts on the weird defense opening? Oh, I thought they scored points all right. I thought they scored points for the prosecution. Yeah, it was a weird opening. It was really weird, really strange. Oh, it's already Monday morning in Korea. Okay, great. All right, resilience. You've watched Wendy's testimony. You also think she's a part of it. Alpha Mike. It doesn't seem like George has been careful about what she asked Wendy. Could it be they want to limit her immunity for future arrests? I don't know. It's so much to do with immunity, but they're trying to get her to cooperate, and they know she does enough damage just by the way she comes across, the way she deflects and rephrases and restates questions and is evasive. I think all that helps build their case to show she was involved. Because think about it, she has her testimony constantly changing about how much did she drive on Trescott after Dan was murdered. G Lander, yes, Rob Adelson, the doctor did do a media interview. I think it was on Over My Dead Body. It's been a long time since I've heard that. Alexandra, what is the defense's theory? To me, it seems they'll point the finger and blame Charlie and not Wendy. How much they blame Charlie and Wendy, not sure, but that's the one thing in opening. What you should do, and you should also do it through the voir dire, is explain your theory of the case, and at least have something to go on. If you don't have a theory of the case, other than the fact that my client didn't do it, okay, you're just trying to say reasonable doubt, but it's just a really weak maneuver. I've never tried a case where I don't have a theory that I'm just trying to hammer home, whether I'm a prosecutor or the defense. I don't play this. Well, we can just put a spin on everything they're saying in our arguments. We don't have to have any evidence. We can just say, hey, they haven't proven anything. There is no evidence. Mike K, you're saying dental practice makes good money, but not enough to control politics unless one of them were elected to something. No, that's not true at all. Probably the most powerful politician, a state senator that became a chief judge in South Florida was Wendy's godfather and best buds with Harvey. That's all it takes. And they made, I believe, most of their money not from the dentistry practice, but from real estate investments. Yeah, Cam, you're saying Rob could not understand how they were not interested in who would do this. Normally, people are constantly wondering that this family did not want that mentioned. Yeah, that's very incriminating. It shows a guilty, conscious state of mind. Just me, you're saying they don't have a theory. They're just moving along based on prosecution steps. Well, anybody says that Jackie Fulford had a good opening, is not a criminal trial lawyer. That's seen a lot of cases in the courtroom and slugged it out in the trenches, I would say. I mean, especially compared to Sarah's. Hers was a hot mess. Jake Cash, you think Donna will say all roads lead back to Wendy? She set up the hit directly herself and then set up Charlie and Donna for the extortion so that the money for the hit would not get back to her. Yeah, that's not going to work. They can do whatever they want. No jury's going to believe there was any extortion. There was a shakedown for $5,000 by the undercover agent on the bump, but that's it. Practice kindness. You're saying the way Jackie pretended to care about what was done to Dan, that was tacky and disgusting. Yeah, I mean, she went on and on and on about him. It was really bizarre, really, really strange. Very strange. Ann Lavelle, you're saying they just told Harvey just sit there and stare straight ahead. 1 second. Yeah, Wendy was the reason that Katie already knew the hit was done. Explain this. As part of the week opening, do the horrible case to try to defend. Yeah, they could have done a better job without trying to misstate the evidence by saying there is no evidence when there is evidence of your client. For example, she said this involves something about the two of us. She also tried to flee prosecution, trying to obstruct justice with the inmates. Dreams came to the defense, not realize how bad it looks to reserve those front 2 rows, and then those seats remain empty except for Harvey. They don't. It's just a very disjointed defense team. Like when Jackie's sitting there and Josh are sitting there listening to the prosecution, listening to witnesses testify, or even not the grand jury, but the jurors on questionnaires. They're not taking notes. It didn't look like they're putting a lot of effort in. That was my take. So there's a lot of stuff that's lacking attention to detail. AJ won't, but how will Jackie's opening play to jurors who know very little about the case? One, it seems sympathetic. Okay, she can try to talk sympathy about Dan, but then when the evidence comes out of how mean and vicious Donna was to Dan and how Wendy was cruel to Dan, it makes the Adelsons look that much worse, the Florida Adelsons. So the more she made Dan out to be such a great guy and so undeserving, how cruel and vicious this was, the more you're actually talking about your client. So Really strange to see that, but is a good thing for the prosecution. Valerie, why did Donna pick them? Well, I think they realized having Miami counsel wasn't going to do them any good. So they decided to go with local. That is the thing. If you come from out of state or out of the area and you've got almost 8 hours distance between Tallahassee, completely different culture and lifestyle in Miami compared to Tallahassee, they're not really dialed into the culture and that can hurt you. And so having local counsel there that can argue it as, hey, I'm one of you guys here living in the community, you do get more credibility that way. Jeremy Daniels, they have down dead to rights by the very fact she's promised the informant veneers Adelson's calling card to perjure herself. You cannot make that up. Came from Donna. Whatever they offered, and you got her handwriting on something, that's very damning, extremely damning. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a case where they got a defendant in jail getting busted for writing a script. I don't think nothing's coming to mind. So that's how desperate she is. No, Fulford's not a double agent. She's just, it's almost like they could just go up there and just act any which way and not really try, and they could try their best for her. It's not going to matter. The outcome is going to be the same. She'll be convicted. Alex Perkins, it doesn't seem like defense is dialing into you as well. How she called Luis Mr. Garcia, calling Dan Danny. She doesn't seem to know the case. Do you agree? I'm not going to say that because I can get names twisted around on here, and she hasn't done trial work in a long time, so she's probably a bit overwhelmed. But misstating a name in a trial, yeah, that's pretty serious. You're trying to have credibility with the jury and act like you know the case. There are a lot of names to remember on this case. When you have a lot of them with the same sounds to them, like Harvey, Donna, Charlie, Wendy, it's easier, I think, in my mind, to get some of those names coming out wrong on my mouth. Practice kindness. What's to keep Donna from saying those emails were from Harvey, the ones that aren't signed, Mom? Well, the jury's going to see it for what it is. The way she acts in the courtroom, the amount of control she has over the family, what Dr. Rob will testify as to the amount of control she has. I mean, all that stuff, that hateful stuff she told Wendy to do, everyone can see that's coming from Donna. I don't think Harvey would talk about dressing up the kids as Hitler Youth and doing a fake conversion to Catholicism. I don't think that's coming from Harvey. No one's going to see that's coming from Harvey. Timothy Smith. Jackie made the point to the that the Adelsons didn't restrict the Geek Squad to visit to the fatal day, but if they restricted the day, that could be potentially incriminating. Yeah, okay. So the question is, how much advance calling did they make to get the Geek Squad out there? Did they call a month out? What's the turnaround time for making an appointment back then? We haven't heard those kind of details. Stevie, how Donna must have so much contempt for her counsel being from Tallahassee. She was mad when Zellman says, I don't know the basis of my objection. She was mad. She was disgusted with him. I'm paying you guys probably $1.5 million combined, plus other experts and all that. And you don't even have a basis for your objection. Sweet Ann, you think the TV code has got to be the worst? It's such a terrible, terrible plot they hatched to come up with an alibi, and it's blown up in their face. You guys like these cups or whatever they call them? "21 Tango, why isn't Sigfredo testifying?" That's a good question. He thought he could fight it all the way. Will he ever wake up? Remains to be seen. Logan Dell, but some are saying you only need one juror. Charlie had one juror who wanted off, but unfortunately it was an alternate. Yeah, okay. Well, then they can retry her if there was only one, but there's always going to be some skeptics out there on a jury. Just like this case I was talking about that happened in 97, the murder of the mother of 6 in Sarasota, Florida, who just moved from San Antonio, and her ex-husband murdered her via hiring some hitmen to connect up and drive all the way from San Antonio to Sarasota, Florida to do the murder in broad daylight in front of her 4 little children. So they're gonna get that conviction, and some may have some critical thinking and be wondering, well, wait a minute, is there enough on Donna? They're not going to have that long conversation, because in the end, they're going to wind up doing a deep dissection of the evidence, and they're going to see that she's totally involved in this. She's not going to come across well. She's acting guilty. She's acting guilty before, during, and after this crime, including the time she's in jail, including she's acting guilty in court. So it's game over. From my experience, it's game over. So that one holdout of the juror, they're not going to have enough fortitude to dig their heels in. And John says that this is like an all-star jury. He says these guys look really impressive. And he doesn't look like any of these are the kind of people that'd be tricked. Shell side, do I think Georgia's held some more accusatory questions back from Wendy as the answers can't be used against her in her own trial? Can Wendy be asked the same questions in each trial? They can mix it up if they want. They got more confrontational with her in the last trial with Charlie, and hopefully they're going to do some more of the same this time. Her answers can't be used against her own trial unless she gives a different answer at her own trial. So she can't keep coming up with a new excuse and not have those other differing versions come out if she takes a stand in her own case. And if you charge her with perjury, all those inconsistencies could come out to prove up the perjury. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to have enough money for Charlie's trial, Charlie's appeal. There's multiple stages of appeal for Charlie. They could also go the federal route. They're going to grind through millions of dollars. They had around $8 million around the 2014, 2016 timeframe. We don't know what their total net worth is now, but they're just burning and churning through that really fast. And maybe they won't have enough money to have $1 million defense for Wendy. As a matter of fact, was it true or just rumor Donna was trying to hurt Rob? There's some indications from that. It's from a defense motion. We've not seen any details on that from the prosecution. That was under seal. So we don't really know the full scoop on that. So it may look like that's the case, but until we actually see more solid proof of it. Claire from London, UK, you're saying essentially the defense, all they have is bad facts. That is true. Bad facts and a guilty looking defendant sitting next to him or between the attorneys. Lynn Paul Pierre, KDX Productions. Do I really think Donna was a mastermind? I think it was Charlie, then Donna came running along for the ride. No, I think it was Wendy. Wendy knew how to push the buttons on her mom. He knew how to push buttons on Charlie. Charlie could not let his mom down, always had to press his mom, always wanted to be living on both sides of the tracks. Had the maestro license plates. So think about it. Why would Wendy be saying someone might have killed Dan on my behalf? What would you be telling them to motivate them to want to kill somebody? How how much shoving and pushing and dumping all kinds of negative stuff about Dan was she doing to people that would listen? And if you know your mom's gonna is unhinged every time you mention Dan, why don't you just stop mentioning him? Charlie Griffin, you're saying Jeff Lecast said the TV screen was completely shattered, an obvious replacement, not a repair. It wasn't completely shattered. It had a big crack in it, it looked like maybe a bullet hole or something like a hammer hitting it. So you could still make out a lot of it, but it had all that cracked glass and where the blunt force object hit the glass, or to be like a puncture mark there. So she made Jeff Lecast and the boys watch a movie with it. So it wasn't completely shattered. I mean, for the sake of, would anybody in their right minds watch a video or a movie, especially with kids? The kids were crying and upset Jeff Lecast was singing. So why would you do that when you had another working TV in the house? Logan Dell, what's wrong with Tallahassee? Are they considered backwards in Tallahassee? I thought Tallahassee is really a cool town when I visited. It's a state capital. It's not along the beach, but they got a lot of neat trees and bushes and really neat kind of foliage around there. And it has sort of a small town feel. It's pretty spread out, but there's a lot of universities and colleges there. And the state capital's there. So you got Florida Supreme Court there. You got the legislature there. They're not in session all year round. So the legislators come from all over the state when they're in session. But I liked it. So compared to Miami, I'd say Miami is just more flashy, a lot more money, just a faster life. It's not my think about it. You think South Beach is like a family area, a great place to raise kids compared to Tallahassee. Okay, Cynthia, you're saying it was Over My Dead Body podcast when Robert Adelson was on season 1, episode 1. Okay. Thanks for that. Mandy McCracken, do I think Don ended up with Zelman Fulford because the other Tallahassee attorneys wouldn't take it or didn't want to take her case? She already tried Morris before he was tossed due to the conflict. Well, I think when you got somebody with the Adelson money coming to town and saying, hey, we need criminal defense support, they were going around interviewing folks. Not many criminal defense lawyers in any town will have folks that can pay over $1 million for their defense. So I think there's a lot of people that would have said, hey, I'll take your case. But it wouldn't be worth it if you have to deal with this terrible evidence. If your client's going to lose a case, why not cut some kind of deal? Why not have a real discussion with your client, getting to the nitty-gritty details of the case and explaining to them, a jury is gonna buy this. We're wasting our time. You will get convicted. But I think those kind of discussions are one of the things the defense bar could do more of, especially if their clients have a lot of money. The wealthier the client, the less likely they are going to be confronted by their attorney. Ashra, yeah, I think Katie was going to have more details this time around. Sigfredo's appeals didn't pan out. Kim Charlesworth, can you explain was acting guilty in court? Well, it's just something I just have a lot of experience in seeing how folks act when they're innocent, when they're guilty, and not all the time is it that easy to pick up on. But I think with Donna, her behaviors shows she has consciousness of guilt. So I think the consciousness of guilt can remain with a lot of folks that are guilty. And so she's acting guilty by the way she talked. Think about it. How did she act on the wiretap? Did she sound like an innocent person? Or did she sound guilty? She sounded guilty, right? The way she's talking in hushed tones, trying to talk cryptically to Charlie, and he kept on prying and prying for information, probably letting clients sitting there under a tooth extraction or something, an implant, and all those multiple calls forth and back, him having to meet up with Katie. I mean, all that, they scurried like rats, like roaches with a light turned on. I mean, that's what happened when the bump went down, and that's what they were hoping would happen. They would act like guilty parties. And then you carried on to the way Donna's acting guilty in jail. And before even she got to jail, the way she tried to flee the country, that's a sign of guilt. So that's what I'm saying. Every step of the way she's acting guilty, she's trying to get other people to lie for her in court, trying to, as we're hearing, apparently cause some heartache to her eldest son, Dr. Rob, and Katie's mom, and Katie herself. And then look at her in court, the way she's shifting her eyes around all the time, the way she can't look at the jury. That's what I'm talking about. The way she's acting, and if you look at the way she testifies, if she testifies, it's just not going to come across well. And she doesn't have any good defense theory on what happened that makes her innocent. Her angry look about her, the way she sits there during openings of Sarah and shakes her head, the way she fakes crying of Dan Markel. So what I'm saying is she's acting guilty because she's acting like she's upset that Dan was killed, and yet you're going to hear the rest of the trial that she couldn't stand him. She hated his guts. We heard some Sarah Youssef in her statement that she said Jan is a jerk. Look at all the stuff she told the boys. They were 3 and 4 years old, saying your dad's stupid and your dad's trying to keep me from seeing y'all. So all that kind of stuff reveals hate, and I think the hate is permeating out of Donna. It's a vibe she gives. So all that kind of stuff is just the jury gets it. Yeah. Christina, the victim and the mother of 6 was Sheila Belush, 1997, when she was murdered by her ex-husband. It was such a gruesome, heinous crime. So look that one up. A guy named Alan Blackthorne, or what is his name? Yeah, Blackthorne was her ex-husband. He was absolutely cruel and mean and had a streak of violence about him. And he hired somebody to go in the house when the kids were there, the little babies, and have her slaughtered right in front of them. God is good. Can Wendy be tied to the TV code with a Best Buy appointment? Charlie said on the stand he wished Donna had picked another word besides TV. Yeah, what was the TV having any relevance whatsoever? TV was the code for the murder. And so, yeah, there's a video I did on that on how Wendy is tied to the TV code. There's a number of points that were played on that. It's not a live stream, but it's a video that was done beforehand, then posted. Yeah, so sweet Ann, you're right. Donna brought the family together, and now look where they're at. Lisa MB, yes, I've read Ruth Markel's book. Sure have. I've also skimmed through Wendy's book. It was really harsh reading it. It was such a poorly written script. uh, Dieters, maybe the defense knows Donna will be convicted, so they're looking ahead to an appeal on ineffectiveness of counsel. Well, the lawyers that she has now, they're not going to self-nominate themselves on appeal and saying, hey, Your Honor, judges on appeal, we were ineffective. So she's going to have to get new attorneys on appeal, and they would allege that the trial attorneys were ineffective, but I think they're raising enough motions. They're not conflicted from all appearances of it anyway, like we had with Roshbaum. So I don't think we're going to have ineffective assistance that's going to carry the day for Donna, where she'll get a new trial granted. So I think these charges will stick. I think Charlie's trial, those charges will stick as well, but for the issue of conflicted counsel. And I think that would be overturned later on down the road at some point, and he'll get a new trial. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong on that. But I'm just a real stickler on constitutional due process. Maybe Florida doesn't care as much about that. Williams Evans, how do I think Donald will try to explain the writing of checks to Mag Banwa for no work done? They'll come up with something that won't be credible. They'll try to say, well, I was just doing what Charlie said or something like that. So then jury's not going to believe that when they look at the totality of all the evidence. Let's see here. Yeah, you agree when it was a true mastermind. Jay Cash, have you ever discussed when Wendy got locked out of her house in the days prior to the shooting? I think I think that probably was a stage thing, just like looking for houses was staged. And I think it gave her an excuse to give keys to other people, like her friend Jane, so that she would have the chance for Jane to go pick up the kids at school and bring them home because she might be still at the police station. I mean, that sounds like pretty detailed planning, but I think that's a possibility. And Jeff LaCasse was witness to her getting locked out and all that kind of stuff. So is it just a coincidence? I don't know. I don't look at anything as a coincidence when you got so many indicators. Forex, do attorneys of this caliber get paid up front in lump sum or by the hour? I think when clients have deep pockets, they try to get it at a flat fee. If it's hourly on a criminal case, then your client can't pay you. Like sometimes the judge may not be as inclined to let you withdraw for a non-paying client. Tony and Tango, are you predicting a guilty verdict or an acquittal? The other option is a hung jury. I'm predicting a guilty verdict. I have no hesitation in saying that. Hebe, should the judge admonish the paralegal for putting her arm around Donna and treating her like the victim? Yeah, John mentioned that as well. So I think that's really something that I would I'd be keeping an eye on her behavior if I was a prosecutor team, and I'd object to that as well. Like rubbing her shoulders, rubbing her back, that kind of stuff. I mean, she's trying to act like she's grieving like Ruth Markel has had to grieve. So it's just really outrageous. That's why I'm saying she's acting guilty. It's faked. If you're faking, you're acting guilty, right? If Wendy's faking stuff in the interview with Detective Isom, you're acting guilty. That's how people on the jury pick up on that. Eric Norgard, do I think it's an insult toward mastermind when referring to Donna? Yeah, more like master sounds like it's a good plan, has that connotation anyway. I think so. To be a mastermind, it's more like disaster mind. The whole plan was a disaster from the get-go. Yeah, I thought these Adelsons have no idea how they're coming across. They're completely tone deaf, no self-awareness. Got as good as saying, in Wendy's trial, should the state bring up the broken TV? Okay, yeah, that's a central part of their case. Jeff Lacasse said no way one of the kids broke in, he offered to buy a new one. What are the chances of repair was during the murder? Yeah, there's so many breadcrumbs that Wendy left that she's trying to leave behind. Yeah, here, Linda Mon, you said it right. Wendy planting false seeds about someone killing Dan for her. Wendy plotted this. Yeah, she's breadcrumbing and trying to look like a boohoo victim, false tears, false emotions. The Sarah 730, did Wendy respond to her mom's emails? No, we do not have those. Apparently not. But if you're Wendy, you're sitting back thinking, hey, my plan's working. I'm getting mom all riled up. She's going to help fix my problem with Dan. AJ, if they never said anything on the wiretaps besides, I need to speak to you about something, then only talked in person, how hard would this be to prosecute? The calls 100% sunk them. If you didn't have the calls, I think absolutely the prosecutors down there would not charge Donna. I think there's still always enough with Charlie. A couple of guys from Miami with no connection to Tallahassee, had never been there before. Don't drive up there to kill Professor Markell unless somebody hired him to do so. So who in Miami area knows and hates Dan Markell? Follow the hate and you follow the trail that leads to the killers. Leslie B. Yeah, and it's pretty obvious Wendy broke the TV. I'll get behind my comments here. Simon for life. It doesn't seem normal for Donna to keep on emailing Wendy and there's never a response. I agree. Nadia Walman. Who else thinks Wendy is up right now watching? There's no way Wendy is sleeping tonight. Unless she's on some kind of sleeping pills. Karen Rumkey, perhaps Georgia can use Wendy to bring out Donna's preferred name for Dr. Markell, i.e., gibbers. Yeah, they called him Dr. Markell. I don't recall that ever before. I don't know that he has his doctorate. Then the defense team can refrain from disrespecting him by calling him Danny. Well, they're going to still call him Danny, I think. Well, it's not just Donna's preferred name, because also that was the name that, as we found out in the last trial, that was listed in the caller ID. It wasn't Dan Markell or kid's dad or anything like that. It was Gibbers. That was his saved identity on Wendy's phone. God is good. Says Jeff said Wendy took herself off psychiatric meds about a month before the murder. That can cause great emotional instability, and mental. Could this be brought up in her trial? Well, it could be brought up in her trial, maybe if they try to use that as a defense, but that's really more like an insanity defense where you're admitting you did it, but it was diminished capacity or something like that. I just don't see that happening. I think psych meds had a lot to do with their aggression. That's something I've seen outside this case. You can read a lot about it on YouTube, the long-term effects of these different meds like Xanax, which is a benzodiazepine. Kiki, is there a strong possibility that Wendy could be arrested tomorrow? I don't think so, but I think they need to. I think that would be the right thing to do for dragging this out for so long. So just pray it happens. Dreamscape Gibbers is a derogatory name. It's a colloquial meaning that one talks and talks and talks and says nothing. I think there's some other derogatory description as well besides that. I have no idea what Wendy tells her kids. I don't. It's unbelievable what they must be having to go through. All right, so it's going on 11 o'clock here. You guys have been great supporting the case. Justice for the Markells is going to have more in their favor on that regard tomorrow. It is going to be something. It is going to be something seeing Wendy on the stand. She keeps getting worse, folks. That's what I've been saying. Each trial, she keeps getting worse. You ask more probing questions as a prosecutor, and it's going to make her look worse and worse. It's going to help your case more and more. So y'all have a good, safe week, and hope you guys can follow this case. Plan to cover it tomorrow as well. John's there in Tallahassee. So the lawyers are going to show up earlier than the jurors, so I'll probably jump on when the judge and the lawyers are talking about any motions, issues to discuss. So y'all take care. Thanks for being with us.